What's up, guys? Thanks as always for supporting the show. It would mean a lot to me if you would take a second to scroll down and hit that subscribe button so you don't miss any more of our videos. Also, make sure you follow us all over social media so you don't miss any of our content or show announcements. All right, let's get into our power rankings before we get out of here for the day. Again, all of our odds are provided by our partner, DraftKings. Number 10, the Detroit Pistons. 6-1 since our last power rankings. 9-2 in their last 11 games. Several quality wins. They beat the Wolves, the Kings, the Lakers, and the Suns in that span. 8th in offense, 12th in defense, 6th in net rating. On the offensive end of the floor, Cade is averaging 25 points, 5 rebounds, and 9 assists on 56% true shooting in that span. Had 17 assists against the Raptors the other night. Just did a great job hunting his spot-up guys. Again, Malik Beasley and Tim Hardaway Jr. just bring like green light spot-up shooting, like any space spot-up shooting. Those guys went 11 for 13 from 3 against the Raptors, in large part because Cade just kept hunting them whenever he could get a chance to get them a look. Even a big shot late in the game, a clutch shot, just a dribble handoff to Malik Beasley at the top of the key where Cade just threw the handoff, threw a little shoulder in there, got Malik enough space for him to knock down that shot. Doing a lot of work at just methodically in ball screens getting into the middle of the floor. One of the things that makes Cade Cunningham so difficult to guard is his short-range shot making. He's shooting 47 for 94 on jump shots that are inside of 17 feet. That's 50%. So he's hitting half of his jump shots that are inside of 17 feet. He's also 57% on floaters, 53% on hooks. This is the kind of thing that I've been talking about a lot with Jokic. This is like kind of a baby version of it that's more of like a perimeter version of it because Jokic's percentages on those shots are all like 60, 70%, right? But this is what causes Cade to be a very reliable shot creator in these types of situations. Cade's score percentage, remember, score percentage is just the percentage of possessions that end in points, okay? Cade's score percentage on post-ups is 56%. A Cade post-up, if he ran 100 of them, they're going to score at least 1 point on 56% of them. That's the reliability that comes from short-range shot making. Short-range shot making is going to have shooting percentages that are higher than 50%, which is going to be less, dependent on the variance that can come into the equation when it comes to any sort of jump shooting type of situation, right? That's a huge part of it. The Cade just brings that physicality. Tobias Harris doubles down on that physicality. He had a big driving layup at the end of that Toronto Raptors game. Tobias has basically been 50, 40, 90 in this stretch, and it adds to the physicality that the front line brings. Jalen Duren, he actually ran an inverted ball screen the other day where he, I think it was in the Warriors game where he got a screen from Cade and just went right downhill and dunked it with his right hand. But it's just the Isaiah Stewart brings that level of physicality. Jalen Duren brings that level of physicality. You've got the athleticism of Ron Holland and Asar Thompson that comes into the equation. It's layers of athleticism in every phase of the game, but the shot creation in particular of Cade, but also with Tobias just hunting these smaller guards. And that's part of it too. I was talking with a buddy of mine earlier today. Like, I saw the Warriors start Dennis Schroeder on Cade. I wonder if teams need to start bigger defenders on Cade because of how easily he's getting to where he wants to on the floor. But yeah, again, things starting to turn around for the Pistons. They're also top 5 in rebounding during this stretch, playing some really good basketball. Tough schedule coming up, though. Right now, if you want to bet on the Pistons, they're plus 100,000. That can't be right. It's got to be 10,000. That can't be right. I'm going to guess that that's plus 10,000 to win the title and plus 6,000 to win the East. But we'll see. Maybe I'll check it after the show. Number 9, the Sacramento Kings. 7-game win streak, 7th in offense, 3rd in defense. They're grabbing 54.4% of available rebounds in this stretch, just bludgeoning teams on both ends of the floor on the glass. Sabonis had 28 points against Boston, 28 rebounds against Boston the other night. Trey Lyles had 5 offensive rebounds in the same game, so 13 offensive rebounds just between those two guys. Just did a ton of damage. Sabonis was just throwing around Porzingis and Horford in that game. A lot of high-quality wins in the 7-game stretch. All 7 wins. Dallas, Philly, Memphis, Golden State, Miami, Boston, Chicago. Those are all really impressive wins. The Boston game in particular, super impressive. No De'Aaron Fox in that one. They competed throughout, kept the game close with their defense and the rebounding, and then they went on a crazy run to start the fourth quarter. So Joe Mazzulla ends up putting Kristaps Porzingis on Devin Carter to start the fourth quarter. All game long, Mazzulla put centers on to Devin Carter to try to make him uncomfortable and just, see if he's willing and able to make them pay with over-the-top shooting. And he hit a three on Cornet early when they put a center on him. And then to start the fourth quarter, back-to-back bombs over Porzingis. That forced them to switch the action. So then all of a sudden Pritchard was on Devin Carter. They ran the exact same action with Trey Lyles pick and popping to the top of the key. Porzingis didn't want to help because he was worried about the pick and pop. So Devin Carter just went right around him. And I think it was an and one, or it might have just been a layup, but he gets a layup. So Devin Carter, 8 quick points to start the fourth quarter. Keegan Murray hit 3 huge threes. He was beating nail help and low man help all night long with long above the break threes on the wing. DeMar DeRozan, too, just brought the game home with his shot making. He was having a brutal shooting night, especially in that second quarter. It was like he couldn't hit a shot to save his life, but he had 12 points in the fourth quarter, hit a couple threes as well. Some really tough contested shots that ended up helping to carry things home for the Kings in their big upset win. Sabonis was doing a ton of damage to Porzingis and Horford, not just on the glass, but also picking and popping. He had 3 threes in the game, 2 pick and pop threes early, and then also hit a big clutch three. I think it was on an offensive rebound kickback. Just an absolutely monster road win to legitimize the Kings' win streak. The win streak has mostly been about the Kings winning on the margins, though. They're forcing 16.1 turnovers per game. That's third in the league. 21 points points off of turnovers per game. That's third in the league. 14 offensive rebounds per game in that span. That's third in the league. 16.4 second chance points per game in that span. That's third in the league. Then on the opposite end, they're top 10 in opponent points off of turnovers, top 10 in opponent second chance points, top 10 in opponents' fast break points, and top 10 in opponents' points in the paint. So they're taking away the easy stuff in the paint. They're turning their opponents over and getting out in transition while not turning the ball over themselves and keeping their opponents out of transition while doing a ton of damage on the offensive glass while not letting the opponent do a ton of damage on the offensive glass. That's it. That'll go a long way towards turning things around, for just destroying teams on the margins the way that they have in this span. And then the offense is finally clicking with all the talent that they have in this roster. De'Aaron Fox is averaging an efficient 29 in the 7-game win streak, although he's been out for some of the games. And then Malik Monk and DeMar DeRozan, both over 20 points per game. Sabonis in this span, 20, 17, and 7 on 60% from the field, 59% from 3. Time and time again is hitting big 3-point shots at the end of games. The Kings are the latest Western Conference team that looked completely dead in the water, but then successfully resuscitated their season, and why I'm pretty much unwilling to write anybody off at this point. They are plus 9,000 to win the title, plus 3,500 to win the Western Conference. Number 8, the Indiana Pacers, winners of 6 in a row, 12 of their last 15. They are now all the way up to 5th in the Eastern Conference. And last night, they pulled off one of the most impressive wins of the season, just dominating the Cavs in Cleveland in the second half, shutting down their offense. They outscored the Cavs 68-40 in the second half and did it almost entirely with ball pressure. In the third quarter, they just started pressuring the hell out of Cleveland in the backcourt and playing those kick-ahead passing lanes that Cleveland lives on a lot of the time. And it just completely discombobulated the Cavs. They had 7 turnovers just in the third quarter that led to 12 Pacers points. And then in the half court, when they did get up the floor, they just looked kind of sped up and out of control. The Pacers ended up grabbing that game by the reins and never let go. In the streak, the Pacers are 3rd in offense, 8th in defense, 8th in rebounding. And you don't need to look too much further than that. A lot of things are going right for Indy. Siakam's playing great. Andrew Nembhard being back has helped a lot. They're 16-8 when he plays this year and 5-10 when he doesn't. So when he was injured for that amount of time, it really hurt things. Jarris Walker's become one of my favorite young role players to watch. He's really starting to blossom into a useful forward. He had a couple of huge poke-away steals. He'll get aggressive from behind on steals, he gets beat, or if he's in chase, trail position on anything, he just starts swiping at the basketball with his long arms. He had a couple of big poke-away steals in the second half against Cleveland. He's been a high steals guy per minute all season and really all of his career. Shooting 40% from 3. Runs some legit action. He had a ball screen in the third quarter with Thomas Bryant where he put his defender in jail and brought over the rim protector and dropped it off to Thomas, got an easy bucket. All the pick and roll reps that I've watched with Jarris Walker this year, he's just done a really nice job of using his size. All that means there is if a ball screen comes and the guy chases over the top, if you run it right, where if you actually make shoulder-to-shoulder contact and time everything properly and set your man up for the screen, you're going to get him in trail position. Once he's in trail position, if you're bigger, then you can just methodically work to whatever spot you want by just kind of reverse post-ups. We talked about that with Luka in the Timberwolves series. It's like a reverse post-up. because as you come over the screen, the defender gets on your backside, and then you're kind of just posting him but forward, like you're sealing him behind you while you methodically work your way forward to try to either bring a help defender over so you can throw a pass, or if they sag back, that's when you can go to your short-range shot making, which, by the way, is pretty good at the shot making piece too. He's actually run 63 ISOs, pick and rolls, and post-ups this year, including passes that have led to 64 points. So that's over a point per possession. For a second-year forward who's, a role player type of prospect, like, it's really, really impressive stuff from him. So again, Jarris Walker's great. Nembhard's back playing great. Siakam's playing great. Halliburton's been really good as of late, up until the injury, which we'll talk about in a minute. All that's good and all that's great. But the main thing that's driving this turnaround for the Pacers is their defense and rebounding. Before this 15-game stretch where they've won 12 out of 15, they were 24th in defense, 27th in rebounding. In the time of the 15-game stretch where they're 12-3, 8th in defense, 8th in rebounding. That's really it. They have to compete on the margins to give themselves a chance, especially when you're as undersized as they can be on the perimeter. Like, you've got to leverage yourself athletically on both ends of the floor, like by running up and down the floor with that pace that makes the Pacers so good, by pressuring the ball, by trying to force turnovers. They don't really force a ton of turnovers, but that was a big part of how they beat Cleveland. And in the last few games, they've been forcing more turnovers, which has helped things. Again, like, by ball pressuring, you can discombobulate your opponent and cause it to be more of an up and down type of game. And an up and down type of game is going to favor the Pacers more often than not. One big bummer, though, Tyrese Halliburton had been looking a bit more like himself. He, in this stretch, this 15-game stretch, was averaging 19 points and 10 rebounds on 49% from the field, 41% from three, and 88% from the line. But then he left at halftime with hamstring tightness. And obviously, with everything we know about Tyrese Halliburton's history, that's obviously super concerning. So hopefully we get some good news on that front sooner than later. Pacers right now plus 10,000 to win the title, plus 3,000 to win the Eastern Conference. Number 7, the Memphis Grizzlies. They've dropped 3 out of 5. They still have the 6th best record in basketball, though, in spite of that. It's kind of an uneven stretch. Really impressive win in Minnesota against the Timberwolves, where they were playing one of those top 10 defenses that Taylor Jenkins has been talking a lot about, and they not only lit them up, but also got a big win. Jaren Jackson was incredible all night, and then Ja Morant ended up stealing the game with 2 crazy crunch time buckets, including this impossible kind of like leaning floater fadeaway thing that he hit over Ant that ended up winning the game. But that was after a disappointing game against Houston, where their offense really sputtered. They turned the ball over a ton. Houston just butchered them in transition off of it. And again, like Taylor Jenkins before that game had said, that he viewed these 2 games in particular as important tests because they were against top 10 defenses. And again, they failed the first test, but then they passed it in the Minnesota game. They had a 125 offensive rating in that one. Minnesota's currently sitting 6th in defense. So I wanted to look at that top 10 defenses piece since Taylor Jenkins was kind of concerned about it. So what do the numbers say about Memphis versus top 10 defenses? They've played 9 such games this season. They have a 112 offensive rating in those games. That actually ranks 9th in the NBA. It's not bad, right? So their offense has been fine, but they're 3-6 in those games. And a good part of it has been bad possessions that end in transition runouts. And this was something that I didn't even realize up until this point, but Memphis lets offenses get out in transition 17.2% of their possessions, according to Cleaning the Glass, which ranks 26th in the NBA. So, like, they can get beat in transition. This is what happened in that Houston game in particular, and it's one of the things that's happening to them against these better defenses when they start to turn the ball over and give up live ball situations where they can get compromised. The Grizzlies are also 6-10 in clutch games this year and have only posted a 106.1 offensive rating in 47 clutch minutes this year. That, to me, comes down to teams packing the paint. Again, Memphis generates by far the most spot-up attempts in the league, in large part because of Ja Morant. They generate 35.4 spot-up opportunities per game. Denver, as a comparison, only generates 20.3, just to give you guys some perspective there. But Memphis only converts spot-up possessions at 1.04 points per possession, which ranks 19th in the NBA. They're shooting 16%, 5 for 31 on threes in the clutch, which ranks dead last in the NBA. So again, that's part of the thing that's been causing some issues for them on offense. Just something to keep an eye on. Memphis right now plus 2,800 to win the title, plus 1,100 to win the Western Conference. Number 6, the Denver Nuggets. We hit them in the opening segment today. So if you want more Denver Nuggets analysis, if you're checking this out on the Power Rankings breakout clip, just go to our full episode. They are plus 1,300 to win the title, plus 550 to win the West. Number 5, the Houston Rockets, a really impressive win in Memphis for their 3rd straight win the other night. Şengün was just absolutely frying every single Grizzlies big. They had brought in their 3rd string center, Brandon Clark, midway through the first quarter, just trying something to get it. Like Jay Huff couldn't handle him, Zach Edey couldn't handle him. It was just a problem. It was one of those things too, where like Şengün, part of the issue too, and I'm confused about this as it pertains to opponents. Everyone's biting on Şengün's pump fake in the middle of the lane every single time when like the numbers say that's not necessarily a super efficient shot for him, but he was just getting those guys just by showing them the ball and then going right around him, getting wherever he wants. Even did some damage to Jaren Jackson in that game as well. But the more impressive part of that game was Houston's defense, which just completely discombobulated Memphis's offense. They had 31 points off of turnovers in that one. And then one of the big stories that I've been talking about all year is like Jalen Green and Fred VanVleet. When they produce offensively, this team looks like a championship contender. When they don't produce offensively, they look like a mediocre team. In the Memphis game, those guys gave you 49 points. The Wizards game, 48 points. The Lakers game, 48 points. So you're averaging 48 points between those those two guys consistently over the last 3 games. That's been the swing factor, their offense. When the Rockets score at least 114 points this year, they're 17-1. That's the main key for them. And that's why they seem like such a prime candidate for that type of superstar trade, is like get somebody who can consistently bring in that type of production. You could have a very dangerous team here. Rockets are plus 5,500 to win the title, plus 1,800 to win the Western Conference. Number 4, the New York Knicks. They had lost 4 out of 5 before the win over the Bucks yesterday. Just completely let go of the defensive rope again as of late. In the 4 losses, they had a 122 defensive rating. The Thunder game in particular was gnarly. In that second quarter stretch, it was actually late first quarter when it started, Shea was just dribbling up at Mikal Bridges and just going right around him every single time and just getting right to the rim or getting great separation on his step back. It was honestly pretty embarrassing what Shea did to those guys. The Knicks did get back on track, though, with the win over the Milwaukee Bucks yesterday. Brunson lit them up right out the gates in the first quarter. He finished with 44, did a ton of damage to Brook Lopez in space. Was not a good defensive game for Brook. But the Knicks are not going anywhere if they can't get some more consistent effort on the defensive end. Again, a 122 defensive rating, that's just them letting go of the rope again. And again, if they're going to compete with Boston, that has to be their calling card in a real way. The Knicks are plus 900 to win the title right now, plus 400 to win the conference. Number 3, the Boston Celtics. We also hit them in our opening segment tonight. So again, if you want to see more Celtics stuff, just go to our full episode. They're plus 250 to win the title, plus 110 to win the conference. Number 2, the Oklahoma City Thunder. We talked about Shea cooking Mikal Bridges earlier, but on the other end of the floor, the Thunder did a great job switching and containing the ball against the Knicks. Only allowed 9 unguarded catch-and-shoot jump shots all game. Remember, that's a team that allowed just 3 wide open or unguarded catch-and-shoot jump shots against the Cavs in that in the second half of the Celtics game when they beat the Celtics. So we know that they can really strangle the life out of you and take away those open spot-up opportunities. That's a Knicks team that has been picking people apart. Again, only 9 unguarded catch-and-shoot jump shots allowed in that game. 2 blowout wins to bounce back the Thunder from their loss in Cleveland. We did a deep dive on both of the Thunder games last week. We did Thunder Celtics and Thunder Cavs in a lot of detail. If you haven't seen those videos yet, make sure you go back into our feed. We did a bunch of analysis there. The Thunder right now, plus 265 to win the title, plus 130 to win the Western Conference. And last but not least, number 1, the Cleveland Cavaliers. Dropped a game to the Pacers that we talked about earlier in the Pacers segment, so I won't get too much further into that. But one other thing I wanted to point out, I don't think ball pressure is going to stifle their offense the way it did against Indy. That said, we have talked a lot about Cleveland's shooting. They generated 13 catch-and-shoot jump shots in the second half and made just 1 of them in that game against the Pacers. 6 of them were unguarded. They were 1 for 6. 7 of them were guarded. They went 0 for 7. Sam Merrill and Dean Wade in particular got some pretty good looks that they just didn't hit. And obviously making shots is a huge part of what makes the Cavs so good. So it was just interesting to see what it looks like when they don't make shots, although it's not something I'm concerned about in the big picture. I do have one last Cavs bit. They're plus 1,100 to win the title, despite Boston being at plus 250 and Oklahoma City being at plus 265. I think that's absurd. I think they're very clearly on the same tier. They've beat them both once this year already. The record that they have, they're at a 71 win pace, guys. That's not something to overthink. Now, the case for why the odds are different is Cleveland would theoretically have to beat Boston and then also beat Oklahoma City. But the same could be said for Boston. They would have to beat Cleveland and then beat Oklahoma City. And I obviously think people are overlooking the middle of the West too. Like Denver's going to be an issue. Dallas is going to be an issue. Memphis is going to be an issue. Like I think Oklahoma City is going to have a harder time getting out of the West than it would appear at this point in time, because I think everyone underrates that middle tier in the Western Conference. So the point is like, I just don't understand the gap in the odds. If I was ranking the contenders, I'd have Boston 1, I'd have Cleveland 2, and I'd have OKC 3. But if you're giving me plus 250 for Boston, plus 265 for Oklahoma City, and plus 1,100 for Cleveland, that's just an excellent opportunity in terms of the betting price there. And like, I think the issue there is everyone is just underrating Cleveland's talent. We all have preconceived notions of Darius Garland and Evan Mobley about the players they used to be, and the truth is they're just better basketball players now. And we need to recalibrate the way that we look at that team. I think that's just an insane number there to get the Cavs at plus 1,100 to win the title. Again, all of our odds are provided by our partner DraftKings. That's all I have for today, guys. As always, I sincerely appreciate you guys for rocking with me and supporting the show. We'll be back tomorrow with more game reaction. We're going to start shifting gears into some trade deadline stuff here as of the next few weeks too. So keep an eye on that. Again, I appreciate you guys, and I'll see you tomorrow.